Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. Yes, we're back after a week hiatus for life reasons, but we're back at it this week looking at the comics from September 22nd, 2023, and I'm recording this on March 22nd, 2024. As always, I give you those dates so you know when this information is actually relevant because the market is always moving and changing, as you will see by the price differences as we talk about them. Also, as always, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. This was a week where we did not do a cash or trash. So there's no like JP predictions this week. It's just the results. But anyway, as we always do this because we want to see what made these comics hot 6 months ago. Were they worth chasing in the moment? Would you have been better off being patient? And what factors may have made the difference between being smart to be patient versus going on and chasing that book at the time? So with that, we got 16 books to talk about this week. Let's see what we can learn. First up, we have Heart Attack, #1 from 2019. This hit both lists because it was optioned. Woohoo, optioned. Go buy it. No, don't do that. Back then, raw copies were going for 10 to 15, 9.8 going for 100. This one, which is actually relatively on the low side of what we sometimes get with some of these option books in terms of the prices they go for. And this book, because of that, this book has done okay. I mean, it's now $10 book, basically raw, 9.8, 95, only one sale there. So call this a down, I'll be back, steady, I'll be back, right on that kind of borderline, but definitely on the lower end of what it was going for back then. But not many sales now, though, for sure. So not a good chance you're going to get your money back out of it. So we are going to call it a down and I'll be back. Next, we have Fish Flies, #2. This hit the list. This was another error recall book. So we get these every so often, and it'll be a recall or be an error. In this case, it was a printing error. They had duplicate pages in the book. So the manufacturer recalled it, told everybody to destroy it. They never destroy them. Everybody chases them like, oh, these are going to be rare and hard to find. And they never are because nobody ever destroyed them. So basically, there's just a ton of them out there along with a ton of the corrected copies. Back then, it was going for $20. Now it's a $5 to $10 book, 9.8, going for $30. Yeah, this is actually, I put trap. This should be a dumpster fire. Is what I should have called this because, yeah, it's more than a 50% decrease. Just not worth it. And these error books almost, unless they truly are limited in some way that the books actually get caught and only a few of them get out on the market, they never hold because for the most part, people don't destroy them. People don't return them. They keep them and try to make money off of them. And there's just not really long-term money to be made. With that, we're going to move into covers. First on our covers, we have Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder, #3, the Sanford Green 1 in 25. This 1 in 25 is going for 40 to 70, so basically double to triple ratio. Now, which usually means it's going to back up, but this book has sold for 65, the most recent sale, but that's also the only sale, so it's hard to really say this has been steady and worth it. But according to that price, it has been steady and worth it on at least that one sale. But there's a lot of them out there for sale, and they're just not moving at those prices. So realistically, this is probably a down. But for now, since the only sale data we have is that one, we have to say steady and worth it. Next, we have Spider-Gwen Annual #1, the Ji-Hung Lee 1 in 100 Virgin variant. This was on the list a couple weeks ago, the last time we did this. Raw copies, there were 200 at this point. 9.8s were starting to hit the market at 375. Now raw copies are 90 to 170, 9.8s 2 to 225. So that's down in a trap. Book is definitely backed up from the peak values. I think you did okay if you got on it quickly, but as it continued to be on the market for a few weeks, you'd been better off being patient and coming back. Next, we have Werewolf by Night, #1, the Adam Hughes 1 in 50 Virgin variant. This is going for 75 to 95, so not quite double ratio on a 1 in 50. Not a good sign, and that's what happened here. It's now a $20 to $50 book, so under ratio and significantly under ratio for the most part. One 9.8 sale at 140, but yeah, this is a dumpster fire for everybody who was chasing those raw copies at between $75 and $100. This did not hold at all. All right, our last just pure cover is Wolverine number 37, the Virgin 1 per store thank you variant. This was going for 50 to 80 bucks back then, which is really good because typically 1 per stores equate to about a 1 in 25 in terms of availability, and they usually perform on the market very similar. So this was double to triple ratio if you were thinking along it that way, which means probably going to back up. That's what happened here. 20 to 50 now. One 9.8 sale for 99. So another trap, another borderline dumpster fire right here as this book has come crashing back down. All right, next we have Wolverine number 36. So book beforehand, this is of course the first Helverine. Back then it was going for $20, was kind of re-hitting the market. It had jumped when it first came out, then it kind of cooled, and then it was there was some uptick in sales. It caused it to hit the list again, even though it was still only going for 20 bucks. Now this is a $35 to $60 book, 9.82 to 225. This has everything to do with the recent announcement that they're getting its own series now, that they're going to bring this character back. Not sure why, but sure. So yeah, that's in the solicitations. I think it comes out next month. So yeah, this book is up in straight cash right now. If you invested at $20, you can definitely make some money off of this particular book. We'll see if this character has any long-lasting staying power, or if they go the way of Weapon H and some other characters like this, mashup characters like this that haven't had long-term staying power. We'll see. Next, we have Moon Knight number 1, first solo series for Moon Knight, and this is hitting the list because we got news that Mark Spector was gonna have a comic book death, and he was gonna be replaced as the Moon Knight. So that was coming in comics. I assume that's happened at this point. I haven't been reading or following Moon Knight, so don't know exactly where the storyline stands, but that was what the news was back then. Raw copies were going for $75, 9.8 going for $300. Now it's a $20 to $60 book for a raw copy, 9.8 $240. So we're down in a trap. Has not held those kind of values. I mean, it's been 6 months. He could have died, come back, died again, and come back again. It's comics. So there could have been 4 Moon Knights since then. Being a slight exaggeration here, but it's not only a slight. So, all right, next we have Uncanny X-Men 141. This hit the list a couple weeks ago when we were doing this also, last time I did this list, and that was because facsimiles were coming, so that was prompt. Plus, we were getting the continuation of the story arc from Claremont, so yeah. So basically, or maybe it was a prequel to the story arc. I forget exactly what the follow-up they were doing related to Days of Future Past. I can't remember if it was prequel or follow-up. One of the two. Anyway, we were getting that. So raw copies were up to 125. 9.8 was going for 670. Now, kind of one of these inconsistent ones. Raw copies are 50 to 100. So you might have to pay 125 for a really perfect raw copy. But for the most part, they're under $100, so that would be a slight step back from what it was going back then. But 9.8s have actually taken a step forward. They're now 720 to 850. So we're going to overall call this up and worth it. If you bought in, you're probably going to do okay. This is a classic X-Men story, and it's always going to have some value. Maybe not the value it has at the moment, but always going to have pretty good value. Next, we have DC Comics Presents number 26, first appearance of Starfire, Raven, Cyborg, and this was hitting the list. I did not write down why. I already forgot. I just rewatched this stuff yesterday. So I believe this was hitting the list because of this was under Comic Buzz, and it was because they had stepped up as the preeminent team in the DC universe right now, and they were getting their first ever kind of roster-wide, DC-wide crossover event with Beast World had been announced, and that's why this was hitting the list. Raw copies were going, well, this is one of those where I got a Tom average of 430, and then a 9.8 at 1,000. That average, we just have to throw that out. It doesn't; those averages never mean anything. They're not relevant, and they're not really accurate. So. Right now, raw copies are costing anywhere from $50 to $350. So depending on the condition, 9.8 still sitting right around that $1,000 mark. 950 all the way up to $1,250. So you could have made a little bit, but not consistently going to make money there. So we're going to call this up and worth it, or steady and worth it, excuse me, instead of up, because yeah, there's a few sales above where the 9.8s were sitting back then, but not consistently enough up to call it up overall. All right, next, we got a couple of Star Wars books. The Ahsoka show was still coming out at this point. Kanan the Last Padawan, #1. First cameo appearance of Sabine, Hera, Ezra, and Chopper, all of which were appearing in the show. Back then, raw copies were going for $50, 9.8 to $130 to $150. Still way, way down from the original announcements of the show and these potential characters appearing. And now it's down even more. It's $15 to $25 for raw, so that's a trap for the raw side. But 9.8s are still sitting at $1 to $150 range. So overall, we're going to call it a down, and I'll be back. But yeah, these are books that have just, had a ton of interest for a few years in the lead up. But now that it's happened, the interest is just not there anymore. I don't think it has anything to do with the portrayal of the characters. Ahsoka was pretty well received. It's just, and this is going for Marvel and everything. Once the project actually comes out, the interest just kind of dries up, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's the way it works. So next we have Star Wars Heir to the Empire, #1, first appearance of Grand Admiral Thrawn, character that we know we're going to be getting again, made his first appearance in Ahsoka, was also generally well received. Raw copies back then, 180, 9.8, 725 to 950. Now it's a $35 to $100 book, 9.8, non-newsstand here, $550 to $700. So yeah, down in a trap on these. And we know we're going to get more Thrawn. It doesn't seem to matter. The books do not sustain those prices, and these are and even the prices last fall were way, way down from the peak for this book. All right, we had a couple of MCU kind of spec things, and then a couple of more DC stuff. First, we got Uncanny X-Men #266. The first appearance of Gambit. For a long time, this was considered his first appearance. Now, the annual is kind of considered the first appearance. But because he's on the cover, much like Hulk 181, this is the book people actually chase. So back then, raw copies were averaging 1 to 120, 9.8, 7 to 825. This is kind of the opposite of that book that DC Comics presents, or not the DC Comics presents, but or X-Men 141 that we had a while ago. Raw copies are now 1 to 200. There's several sales consistently above where the values were raw-wise 6 months ago, but 9.8s are actually down a little bit, 575 to 725. So we'll call this a steady, and then I'll be back, kind of the flip side of that other. This was all based on rumors, again, that never came to fruition, that we were going to get a Channing Tatum Gambit movie. It never happened, but there were rumors that he might appear in Deadpool's Gambit. So apparently, every character that ever could have possibly existed in any possible X-Men universe, or that was ever rumored, is going to appear in Deadpool. And if that's the case, that movie will be trash. Sorry, all these people that are excited we're going to get all these cameos, at some point it just becomes overload and it's not a good movie or story. I hope that's not the road they go down and they just tell a good story, but yeah, we'll see. All right, next we have All New Wolverine #1, first appearance of Laura Kinney as Wolverine. This was going for $30 raw back then. 9.8, though, was only like $45, which was super low. Now it's a $15 to $40 book, so fairly close to what the raw copies were back then. 9.8, 90 to 115. So we're going to call this up and worth it, mostly just because of those 9.8 values. And this is all based on the rumor that we're going to get a Daphne Keane X-23 appearance in Deadpool. This one seems a lot more solid than the Channing Tatum thing. Seems like there's been some level of confirmation of this. But again, I just hope that the movie is good and they don't just bloat it with random cameos. So we will see. Next, we have Aquaman Atlantis Chronicles, number 4, first appearance of Cortex. This is a character that was supposedly going to appear in Aquaman 2. We got confirmation in the trailer, which is causing this to hit the list for all of $3 average, because there was just lots of sales, but they weren't going for very much. It's still a $2 to $5 book. So basically the same price, although very, very few sales right now. So we'll call this steady and I'll be back. There was no reason to chase this book ever, really, and still not. And then last but not least, this week we had Aquaman number 35, first appearance of Black Manta. This was also Aquaman trailer. This was our main big bad in Aquaman 2. The movie didn't do great. I haven't seen it, which I think is the case for most people. But back then, again, Tom gave a weird average of $1,200, which was way too high. But 9.0s were going for $1,400. Now 9.0, the most recent 9.0 was back in October, went for $1,400. But it seems like for the most part, graded sales have been pretty steady over the last 6 months. So we're going to call it steady and worth it. You can pick up raw copies right now for $40 to $250, which is pretty good for, Silver Age first appearance, pretty big villain. So yeah, you can actually still get into this book for pretty cheap for a Silver Age key like this. But that is this week's list. I want to thank you guys for watching. Apologize for missing a week. Hopefully it had been a long time since I had missed one. But hopefully we will be back on track and be cranking these out on a weekly basis going forward. Thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.